What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 5 of the Playground Pod. Today, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, and so we'll get right into it.
Is that going to me now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is really professional.
I'll just trim that.
I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of hoping you keep this in. Actually, I'm going to clip this. No, I didn't have my replay buffer started.
It's okay.
Now, Nukie, we got some really cool stuff I want to talk about today. First, something that's been going on for the past few weeks now is actually the SAG AFTRA strike. So for those who don't know, the Screen Actors Guild, which is all the actors in movies, TV shows, streaming shows, pretty much if you see it on TV, that is a SAG represented actor. Even like most indie projects that random movies that get funded off like Kickstarter and GoFundMe, even those are like union actors. They are now striking with the Writers Guild. And this is actually something that hasn't happened in like 60 years. And the last time this happened was in I believe it was 1960. It was definitely in the 60s for sure. But that was actually a major strike where the writers and the actors, which I believe at the time were actually one union, and they split in, I believe it was the 80s. But there's actually like some really big information coming out in the past few weeks. So this basically is a dispute between the writers and the actors versus what is called the AMPTP, the American Motion Picture. It's basically all the big streaming companies made an organization who then would negotiate with people, but also they don't have the power to make a deal. It's really weird. It's like if your mom sends you to the store to buy milk, but she just wants to know how much the milk is. You don't have the money for the milk, but they just want to know, what do you want? And so basically what is happening is when they finally end up negotiating a deal, that deal will then have to go from the AMPTP to the actual studio heads, to Disney, Paramount, HBO, Netflix, whoever. And the big issue here is it's basically about residuals, especially for the actors. And it just as much, honestly, for the writers. So what a residual is when you do a TV show, like let's say like The Office, like so John Krasinski, Steve Carell, all the actors in that show. When that show airs on TV multiple times, right? Like they filmed that show one time and then they've been showing it on TBS for the last 20 years. They get a residual payment every time that show is replayed because they're getting paid off of profit they're seeing off of work that has already been produced. So basically what's happening is residual checks for writers and actors within like streaming services like Netflix shows, HBO Max shows, Paramount Plus shows. Those checks are significantly smaller, like a fraction of a percent of what it is. So I saw some numbers a few weeks ago where people who, two shows that did the exact same amount of numbers on broadcast television, they'd be looking at a few $1,000s, whereas on Netflix, they'd be looking at $40. So it is a significant amount of money that people are just being denied, basically. Which this is actually also, like, if you ever notice, like certain shows will get taken off of like Netflix and Hulu and like different streaming platforms. That's why. It's not because the show does bad, right? There's always going to be a million people trying to watch The Office, right? You're always going to have that. But it's they don't want to pay those residuals or within those contracts. So a lot of these new shows that are coming out exclusively and straight to streaming, they're not being based on the old broadcast TV contracts. They're being based off of a new contract, which was that was negotiated in 2008. Before like Netflix, when Netflix was like still a disc you had to put in your PlayStation. If anyone remembers those days, it was dark times indeed. Everything
Those were
changed
super dark times,
when
and
Netflix struck.
I actually still have access to the DVD rental portion of Netflix.
God, that's insane. It was just, I remember like I was in high school and my brother, he gave me this Netflix disc and like it was so slow. It took like 10 minutes to load. But then you had Netflix on your computer, on your like your gaming console, and it was a little like a game changer for me. Like it changed my fucking life.
Yeah, it was such a cool opportunity to like get into that level of like content. And I think it really piqued my interest in tech when that kind of stuff started coming around. Because I was like how do you get to that point? You know, like plugging in a game has always just been a thing.
Yeah.
Since at least I've been around, and so like when we're talking about like doing the Netflix discs, that threw me off a lot because it just felt different inherently. And I think there's so many different kind of ways that is developed over the years. And I mean, we still see like GameFly is still somehow a thing.
I feel like that's just a thing because parents don't want to pay for games, which I genuinely understand. Like, you know, I mean, Nukie, you're a dad, and I definitely grew up in a household with a very limited budget.
Yeah, same.
So like, you know, when we got a new game for birthday for Christmas, that game had to last you 6 to 9 months. So like, man, could you imagine like your only game being like Modern Warfare 2?
I'm gonna be honest, like thinking about how much access I have to games now versus like my childhood.
Yeah.
When my mom and I were growing up, it was super limited. Like I got a Nintendo 64 and then I didn't get a game for it for 8 months.
Oh my God. You just had a 64 chilling there in the box.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That's what I got for Christmas. And that's not meant to be a dig at my mom on that, but it was like
for everything else.
it was just one of those things where like we just didn't have the money, and she really wanted to make sure I had like the greatest Christmas I could.
For sure.
And I mean, luckily I had a friend that I was able to just grab games from and borrow games. That's why I accidentally ended up on Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Yeah.
As one of my first games. Which is quite an introduction to video games.
Yeah. That's a game for sure.
But it's so nice to see that transition. Like I did GameFly growing up because I could pay for it myself, but I couldn't afford the games every month. And there were just so many new games coming out and they were all so good. And now going from GameFly, I now just pay for Game Pass Ultimate. And
man,
like
Game Pass is such a great like investment.
Yeah, like, even indies on there are just like at the least, I have yet to find a bad game on Game Pass. Like there's games that are buggy and like problematic, but like there's nothing that's like genuinely just terrible.
Yeah, and I think too as like more stuff comes out with that, we're just gonna be adding more and more stuff. But getting back to the SAG stuff, there is actually I think like I was talking the other day with some like friends of mine who like, and for those who don't know, like my background is I actually I wasn't a full member of the labor union, but I was working with the stagehands union, IATSE, and that is actually, they also do film set work as well. So like knowing what they're fighting for is actually way more serious when like you actually know what it's like to not have what they're fighting for, right? So like when we look at this, like, I think when most people think of actors, they think of like The Rock, Bryan Cranston, Steve Carell, these people who are multi-millionaires. But like, you got to remember, these guys came from the bottom. Like, these weren't people like Steve Carell's first show wasn't The Office, right? Like, there were probably dozens of terrible pilots he did for various shows before he actually got something that stuck. Same with Bryan Cranston. The Rock, I feel like, is a little different of a figure just because he came from like the wrestling world, and then like I just feel like he just like fell into acting.
I feel like that is definitely up that alley. I actually 2 days ago, it was posted. I found out this morning that Sean William Scott, who played Stifler in American Pie, $8,000 for his role. That's the only money he got whatsoever.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of them too. A lot of people, they don't make any money up front. Like they take very little money up front, and they make most of their money on the residual payments, or like in the terms of like movies, on like the revenue. And like, so I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this phrase, but there's a phrase called Hollywood accounting, where it is actually like there were like Avengers Endgame barely broke a profit.
Yeah.
Make that make sense in any world.
it doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, because what they'll do, right? Like Disney owns Hulu,
Mhm.
right? But if Hulu wants to stream Avengers, they have to buy those rights from Disney, while Hulu also is owned by Disney, as does the Marvel movies that were made to be made on Hulu. So it's like if I wanted to buy a pen from me, and I was like, well, this pen's actually really great, so it's going to be $4 trillion for this pen. And they went, okay. And there's actually like some reporting I saw where actually these same executives were making the deals for Marvel and Hulu. So I'm like, yup, we'll pay you $4 trillion for Endgame. That's fine. And it's just absolutely insane.
So their business model allows them essentially at that point to break even in the theaters and then earn the money through streaming. If I understand what you're saying.
Not even break even. They can just make up numbers. Like they can say, yeah, we had to pay 40 million gajillion dollars for Endgame. When in reality, they probably didn't pay anything, or like it's just on paper they're paying that money. But Disney handing Disney money doesn't matter, right? Like that doesn't change anything.
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
It's literally like I took a 20 out of my left pocket and put it in my right pocket. I still have $20. I can just say, yeah, I lost $20 today.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm sure there's some level of tax implication, but it's probably not like if they actually got paid by another company.
It's it's such a widespread thing.
Yeah, that's just them taking money from a subsidiary and pulling it up, which is not. I don't even know if you get taxed on that. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
they actually did that to Stan Lee as well with like the earlier Marvel movies, where like the majority of his money was based off of like revenue and profit versus revenue, I guess. It was based off of the profit the movies made, and he actually had to sue to get the money he was actually due, because they were doing like this Hollywood accounting thing where they just make shit up, and they're like, yeah, we actually didn't make any money on like Spider-Man, because like I guess no one wanted to see it. Like notoriously, people hate Spider-Man.
I believe Scarlett Johansson went through a similar thing.
I think hers was more gender discriminatory than like them bullshitting. If I remember that correctly, it was more like the male actors in the Avengers were just getting paid way more for the same work. So it was more of like a gender discrimination claim than anything. But like one thing I saw when I was doing some research for this was so the first thing, the SAG president, they are ready to strike for 6 months. So I think we need to be ready to not have any new shows for a year.
You know, I think we're still gonna see some new shows. Like I know the writer or the new Game of Thrones show, House of the Dragon, they wrote season 2 while they were shooting season 1. So they actually already have the whole thing written. They said that the strikes won't actually impact the show.
Did they film it though? Because I know like the post-production stuff is not really unionized. So that's the thing. If it's already filmed and written, then they can.
That's a good question. The article that I read specifically said that it was written, but it never mentioned it already being filmed, but they said it won't impact them.
Then I would assume it was already filmed, or they're just talking on the side of their heads, which is, really wild for Hollywood producers to do. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah, very, very uncommon.
Very rare for them just to lie out their teeth, like saying Avengers Endgame lost money.
Yeah, they're usually super upfront.
So like I think the other thing too, right, to look at here is like getting back to like big actors, right?
Yeah.
86% of actors in Los Angeles make under $27,000 a year, which the reason that number matters is because that is the threshold to qualify for health insurance. So 86% of working actors don't make enough to afford health, don't make enough to qualify for health insurance. And then this actually gets even more insane. A 1-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles is $2,700 a month.
They don't qualify for housing either.
That is $32,000 a year. You are paying more for just a 1-bedroom apartment than you make in a year. That doesn't include anything else. Just an apartment, no utilities, no food, nothing. So a lot of actors, they work side jobs. Like they work at Starbucks, they work in restaurants.
or to tie back to Stifler, he actually worked as the churro guy at the LA Zoo.
Yeah, like
because
whatever they can.
He couldn't make enough money.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Yeah. Just kind of thinking this through, like, and even wrapping my head around like his story specifically, he was paid $8,000. He was not, if I recall correctly, he wasn't paid residuals on this. He was just paid $8,000, and the film made $235 million.
Yeah.
On an $11 million budget. Like, they have, like, at least in this specific instance, I can't speak a lot on this because I'm not very well versed, but there's money there. Yeah. They just don't.
The money. The money is there. Yes, can confirm. So there's also like, if anyone out there listening to this, watching this, whatever. First off, like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me how good I look. Thank you very much. If you're looking for a really good resource, look up Adam Conover. He's very active on social media. His TikToks are absolutely insane. He is actually a member of both unions. He's a member of SAG and the Writers Guild. He's also on the Writers Guild negotiating team. So he is one of the people talking directly with the studios. So like, the information he's giving you is straight from the mouth of executives. Like, he's not getting this secondhand. This is straight from the horse's mouth.
Okay, can we quickly talk about how absolutely insane it is that we have a public-facing direct connection?
I love it. I think it's great.
Like that? Like,
also, his shows are great. Anything with Adam, like Adam Ruins Everything, is a phenomenal show. If you really want to just hate life, if you want to just hate everything about societies, like, just go watch that.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. His presentation is amazing.
You care about. Yeah, it's also just very entertaining.
Yeah, he does a really good job of making really horrible things like they don't feel as dramatically horrible in the moment until you think about it like an hour later and you're like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he has one about like eyeglasses and how there's like a crazy monopoly around fucking eyeglasses. I just want cheap glasses. Leave me alone.
In fact, if I recall correctly, it's something along the lines of like, one actual company owns almost every single eyeglass brand.
Yeah, the same people own the eyeglasses. They own the manufacturers. They own the salespeople. It is like, it makes Hollywood accounting look sane.
The ultimate pyramid scheme.
Literally, they owned the pyramid and they own the fucking ground you built the pyramid on.
Yeah, it's impressive by so many measures, but it's very American.
Yeah. I think the other thing I do want to talk about really quick with this before we move on.
Yeah.
I think the impact that this will have on like the content creation space, on the media space, on the gaming space, I don't think enough people are talking about this. Because if this, so like, as of right now, no new shows are getting made. Sure, the shows that have already been made and are just in post-production or are just waiting for something, they're already there, and that's cool. But like, at some point, if we're preparing, and it sounds like both sides they're dug in hard. The studios are like, we'll wait for you to be homeless, actual quote they said. And the actors and writers are like, well, we've got a strike fund that is real fucking thick right now. So we got nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I'm just looking broadly at like past strikes. I know you were talking about the one from the 80s. I believe it was the screenwriters who did one from late 2007 to early 2008. And I recall quite a bit of a gap in content releases around that time.
Yeah. You want to know something crazy? You know what that strike gave us?
Pennies.
What?
I was trying to be humorous and lighthearted.
Pennies. That was pretty good. That was pretty
small amount of money. It was.
You know what show came out of that strike?
Which show?
Jersey Shore.
Of course it did.
All these reality TV shows, if you look at them, they all started around 2008.
What about Extreme Home Makeover?
When did it start?
Yeah, that's right around then too, isn't it? I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna look this up right now.
Jersey Shore. Extreme Home Makeover was 2004, but okay. I think that's not as much reality as like DIY.
That's fair. Yeah, that is a lot more of a DIY show. Yeah, and it was on HGTV, which is not really that much reality.
Yeah, I mean, like the Jersey Shores, the Basketball Wives.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Time wise, that lines up weirdly well, and I don't know how I feel about that at the moment.
You know, it opens your eyes.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm very curious to see where this strike goes. I mean, I obviously full support. Like, I'd rather miss a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years of content than have people literally dying and starving.
Like, yeah, and I mean,
I'm okay with that balance.
Honestly, they're at a point to where they have to. Like, they cannot they can't back down because they're literally fighting for their existence. Like, a lot of the stuff that the studios want to implement, like one of the things is, especially for actors, is they want to pay you for like 1 day of work, put you in a booth with AI, and then they just recreate your entire body. And then forever, for like, you know, $500, they want they want to be able to recreate you in any movie forever.
That's just so messed up.
Yeah, so like I don't even know, like who's an actor who didn't, like, the guy who did Pee-wee Herman just die?
Yes, yeah.
So like imagine this, right? Like you do an AI and a month later you like get in a car accident, something terrible happens and you die. They're now going to cast you for the next 50 years.
Without your say.
And not even without your say, but without any compensation. Zero compensation for that. And that's really what it comes down to, is you're profiting off of my work that I've already done. I should receive my percentage of those of that revenue.
Yeah, I think that's just a really fair take. Like, I very broadly think that almost anything that somebody does, you should get compensation for. That's just a broad. I think most people probably stand on that side of things. And I don't know. It's such a difficult one. I think one of the questions I had for you that you might, I mean, feel free to tell me. Well, tell me to, you know, screw off. But what's your take on a lot of big celebrities? We're talking like Jack Black and I mean, I don't have a huge list off the top of my head, but a whole bunch of huge actors have kind of joined this strike. And what's kind of your personal take on that?
They know where they were 10 years ago.
You know what? That's
really what it is. They remember what it was like to film at night and work at Starbucks during the day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like it's really what I think it comes down to for most of them. It's just, I want to pay it forward for the people who paid it forward for me.
You know what?
And I think it is also amazing that like people with these great platforms are using them well, and like I don't want to say sufficiently, but correctly.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things to me is that as we've seen bigger and bigger and bigger names joining this strike, it's getting that much more publicity on top of it.
Yeah.
And this is not just specific to this strike, but I'd love to see more actors leverage their platforms in this kind of way, where it's not necessarily, I mean, there's some level of photo opportunity, of course, but or at least that's you know, that's something that exists.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want it to, because at that point you're celebrity. But I think throwing your weight behind causes like this, I mean, I think we saw a lot of that pre 2010, where I saw a lot of actors like in advertising and stuff like that, and really helping push products. I think throwing that level of weight behind important causes, I think we could really see a lot of change, and things kind of go a direction that could be a lot healthier than where they're at now. Okay. We are going to jump now into the Microsoft ABK discussion. Microsoft, I'm just going to kind of break down a couple of quick things in this. Microsoft is not willing to break up Activision Blizzard King for the CMA, which has been something that they've discussed. So that's just kind of the quick update on that deal in general. There's a couple of cool things that I think have come out of this deal so far. particularly leaning to Hasbro. So Hasbro has a bunch of deals with Activision in the past, looking primarily at games like Transformers War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, are kind of hailed as the two best games ever made for the Transformers brand. Both of them were delisted after the Hasbro Activision contract expired. However, Hasbro does want them made, or at least re-released again, and get the servers up and running and get functionality. A lot of people that I saw kind of looking at Twitter and Threads and other platforms today, who own the games, really want to go back and play them. But funny enough, this is actually something that I've been losing my mind at today, because I read this earlier. The hard drive that contains those games is just lost at Activision headquarters. They just don't know where it is. Which, it doesn't surprise me. Activision has had a huge turnover rate for the past like 15, 20 years.
Yeah, plus Bobby Kotick's the worst human being of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna pretend Bobby Kotick's terrible.
I genuinely don't think that's a hot take. I think he's just trash.
That's the least hot take. I mean, I have some really intense things that I would say, but I don't think they're podcast content. But yeah, they're not sure what hard drives they're on in the building.
Yeah.
And I mean, Activision has been eating company after company after company. I mean, Activision bought King, it bought Blizzard. Like, Activision's made some giant strides over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not terribly surprising that some things got lost during that just giant consumption of isolation of content. And I mean, hopefully, as we see this Microsoft Xbox deal progress, we can kind of see some of those older games come back that I mean, I'm a huge fan. I played every Transformers game on the Nintendo DS. I played them on my Xbox. I played some of them on my phone, because why not? I'd really love to see them come live. Hasbro has actually talked about a Game Pass deal that they would love to sign with Microsoft, as long as they acquire Activision, which I think is a huge indicator that this deal is kind of valuable, not just for the potential access to games in low-income households, which I think we need to. As much as I understand how people get frustrated that poor people spend money on things like video games, poor people still need access to things like video games to do in their free time.
Maybe if they stop buying Starbucks coffees, they have money for video games.
Yeah, like, I know that's a hot take, but like, people still need to be able to exercise their mind and their body, and like step out of that work mode and that stressful space, and find a release. And this is such a, like, Game Pass is a very accessible way to do that. I mean, we're talking about something that's the price of maybe 4 games a year. Like, that is a huge cost reduction over buying 8 to 10 games a year. I mean, so that's just my personal quick toss on there. One of the other big things that happened this week, and the one thing I'm super excited about, is Final Fantasy XIV is coming to Xbox. And while I personally don't enjoy the Final Fantasy XIV MMO, I do enjoy Final Fantasy games quite a bit. And so we see Final Fantasy XIV coming to Xbox. Final Fantasy XVI is still a PlayStation exclusive. However, the CEO of Square Enix specifically stated in a press release / Xbox release announcement, as CEO of Square, and this is me quoting him here, as CEO of Square Enix, we want to continue to deliver fabulous games to fans across the world. And of course, we want to welcome the Xbox community as well, starting with today's announcement of Final Fantasy XIV coming in spring of 2024. And whenever possible, we are planning to bring our games to Xbox for players around the world to enjoy. The crazy thing here is that Xbox has always had a very difficult relationship with Square Enix and every other PlayStation developer, Japanese developer. They have a tendency to just kind of hold their cards close and work with other Japanese brands. So seeing this kind of step out of that is kind of a huge deal in video games. And I think I'm really excited to see where this goes stepping forward as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there that is really interesting. I think the bringing retro stuff to Game Pass is something that could really bring a lot of people to wanting Game Pass, especially if you're more into the retro games. Like, I'm not really into it, but like, I definitely could see that opening a new market for Xbox, where a lot of people who are like, I don't enjoy games now, but I enjoyed games when I was a kid.
Next up on our agenda for today, we have Call of Duty, which there is so much to kind of talk through in that regard. We've got Season 5 is dropping, which is obviously bringing us new stuff for Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Warzone, the DMZ mode, and a ton of other stuff. Particularly looking at multiplayer, we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new maps. One of them is going to be released in season. We're getting three different game modes, particularly big capture the flag, which sounds like just a larger capture the flag. We're getting variants in gunfight, and we're also getting a new game mode Havoc, which I don't have the details up specifically in front of me for that one, but I'm excited about it anyway.
You know what actually sounds like a lot of fun?
What?
Those like giant gunfight maps they have where it's like Battlefield like style combat.
Oh yeah,
capture the like that kind of capture the flag. I think that would actually be so fun.
Yeah, I'd love to see a little bit more connection with some of the older games we've seen over the years, or older maps that we've seen over the years, because there's been some amazing larger maps for game modes like gunfight that have just been phenomenal releases.
Yeah.
And particularly looking at maps, we do have the 6v6 Punta Mar, which looks like a
Punta Mar, yeah.
City map. We've got the 6v6 strike map. We've got the 6v6 DRC Zone 1 map, which is releasing in season. We've got the Lounge for gunfight and the Canal for gunfight coming out, which both look like they're pulling those out of the current Battle Royale map as well. We also have some events coming up, which I'm super excited about. We got the Faction Showdown. I've always been a big fan of Faction Showdowns. They just do a good job with kind of making those feel very competitive and engaging. In season, we've got a challenge event for a vehicle, and then we're also going to see a camo challenge event in season as well. Looking particularly over to DMZ content, we will see they're adding in a disguise, battle revive, a scuba gas mask, which I think is an interesting one because I know we have the scuba masks and the gas masks separately right now. So combining those two is actually, I think, going to kind of change the way the gameplay is in a lot of those current maps. We're going to get a revive box and then new missions and urgents as well.
Yeah, so we have a ton of cool stuff coming to BR as well. There's actually 5 new guns coming. There's going to be an AR, a sniper, and a second AR. And then in season, we're getting a new handgun and a new SMG. I think I'm actually really curious about that sniper rifle. It looks kind of like a bullpup kind of rifle, but like with a sniper scope.
The one I was going to say on that sniper is it looks like the FN 2000, if you remember that.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you just do. And that gun was absolutely OP when it dropped for Warzone 1. It was also a huge hit when it was in the earlier Modern Warfare games as well.
Yeah. It also looks like the first AR, the FR Avancer? I don't know.
Yeah.
That looks like a FAMAS. That to me is a FAMAS.
Yeah, it llooks pretty spot on, like a FAMAS.
Like from the rail, from just the way the gun is shaped, and like
I'm just kind of looking at the like it feels like a FAMAS with an extended stock.
Yeah.
And barrel.
For sure.
And I mean the M13C being that last AR, it's an M13.
I was gonna say the moment you say M13, I'm just going to sleep.
It's an M13.
It's an M13. It's
just
the M13.
Same gun.
I can't think of a Call of Duty M13 that wasn't dog shit.
I'm thinking, and yeah, straight dog shit.
The Warzone 1 M13, like, it was okay. It just didn't hit hard. You could laser with it. It's just the laser was kind of like a water gun. If I'm being honest.
yeah, yeah, and that's an in-season weapon too. So I mean, it sounds like those first two weapons that we're getting are going to be nice to hop into. I'm really hoping they really surprise us with the handgun and SMG. I'm not sure if this graphic represents the actual handguns, but it looks like a P890 almost and an MP5 again.
It looks like every other handgun in the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, the P890 specifically looks quite a bit like on the graphic.
And the new SMG, that has MP5 looks to me. Maybe like MP5, MP7.
Yeah, straight lock.
But those are both already. Yeah, those are both already in the game.
Yeah, so I wonder if they're just like using those pictures to hide them.
That's what my thought is. Like those just look like very generic handgun SMG.
Yeah, I haven't particularly in the past looked at these graphics all too closely, other than the stuff that is very clear.
Last season's how that looked. But like just like moving, like just to keep this moving forward. There's actually, I think it's really weird that we're adding all these new maps and guns like a few months before the new game comes out. But also this season, we're going to be getting the next Call of Duty release. They're going to be revealing that. I believe I think it's happening this month. I think they said August.
Yeah, I'd have to.
I don't know if that's a confirmed source on anything.
Yeah, the only thing I'm aware of is they specifically mentioned that this season will announce in-game the release or the in-game announcement reveal.
Yeah.
Mashup for COD 2023, which I think, looking back, I don't know that they've ever done an actual reveal in game before. I think that's have they?
They did it for, I think, Vanguard and Modern Warfare 2. They had reveals in the game.
Oh, I probably wasn't paying attention.
I'm very much see. Now here's the reason why you don't remember them, because they were absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
the Vanguard one was like everyone would race to Stadium in Verdansk.
Oh.
And then like when you got there, a video would play. But also if you died, a video would play. So it was just a video played.
Yeah, see, it feels like a huge waste. I think a game that has constantly done reveals really well, and I hate to reference this game for this, is Fortnite.
Yeah.
By far the best experience. I mean, literally watching a meteor crash into the planet.
Yeah.
And then like falling into portals and watching these cutscenes that drive you into the next area, like
even the insane. New ones are really good. Like even the new like events that are like D tier compared like the OG ones, they're still way better than anything COD's ever done with their events. Like I don't know. Like y'all need to just like headhunt whoever at Epic's like making those.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you pay him whatever number he writes down on a piece of paper.
Like, I'm going to be honest. If they could create Fortnite level experiences in their reveal events, I'm saying like drop your new season announcement in Call of Duty, like Fortnite does.
New guns.
And like make it a big deal. Don't make it a 30-second video. Make it like a giant announcement. Like, I think when they were, which game was it where they dropped the nuke outside of, that's what it was. They nuked Verdansk, and then you could see it in Rebirth, but you couldn't play Verdansk.
Yeah, wasn't that before they brought like Verdansk 84 in?
I think so, and that was such a cool they went back experience.
In time. Yeah, for sure, that was really cool.
And I understood why they took it down. It made sense. They were reworking. They were relaunching a new map, and that was sick.
Yeah.
And that was probably the coolest event. That's the only event I remember in a Call of Duty game. And like, why does I just want to see Fortnite level experiences.
Yeah, I think
I mean, not music, but
like just talking about the next game, there's a lot of like leaks and stuff that have come out that I think are really cool. We're going back to the old mini map, which my God, why did we get rid of that?
Yeah, that mini map is such a good experience.
It's so dumb to not have red dots. Like, it's just stupid. It's just like,
I mean,
why would I play this game then?
Especially in the multiplayer and BR portions of it. Like BR especially is a much larger deal than a red dot in multiplayer. But like, I've always been the thing that helped me get to be a better COD player was the red dots when people were shooting.
Yeah, I mean, watch like any esport, and you'll see players constantly checking their mini maps. Like that's just a thing. That's a strat you're taught on like day 2 of playing an FPS. Like check your mini maps, check your mini map, check your mini map.
I think almost every shooter I've ever played, other than the BRs, typically, has a function at some level like that. I mean, even most of the single player ones do it, like Crysis, going back, 15 years.
Yeah, but just moving forward with the next game, there's actually like on the pro scene, because I'm weird and I'm obsessed with like professional Call of Duty, even though I'm absolutely terrible and hate multiplayer most of the time. We've actually had like, I think this is the first year since like the formation of the CDL, which is like the franchised league, aside from the way they used to do it where we had like 50 teams. Now there's only 12 because you got to pay like $2 million to get in for some reason. It's really weird. It's like paying $50 for a gallon of milk. It's only worth $3. I don't know. It makes no sense to me, but hey, I don't have the big hammer at Activision apparently. But I think this is the first year where we're going to actually have some legit super teams formed. Like, so you literally look at like the LA Thieves, the 100 Thieves COD roster. They won COD champs in Vanguard. They got, I think it was top 6 in COD champs this year, and their entire roster is gone.
That is
their
going
main
nuclear.
AR Octane retired. And then Kenny went to Optic. Draza went to FaZe, and Envoy went to Ultra. So they literally, which they also came out a few weeks ago. They did a video about it, just talking about like we need to be profitable, and they lost $2 million. The season they won COD champs, they won multiple tournaments. Like
you're kidding,
won a ton of money, and still came out like that far in the hole.
So I guess because you follow this a lot closer than I do, and I think potentially some people who actually listen to this might not be as aware either. What do sponsorships look like for the teams? Like, are they not backing the teams financially?
No one knows. No one's actively saying how much they're making from sponsors.
That's honestly really fair.
And also salaries aren't public either.
That's kind of frustrating. I'll be honest. Yeah, the lack of transparency is a little annoying.
Yeah, so it's there's definitely like becoming like a 2-tiered system, and especially in Call of Duty, where you have like 3 teams, in my estimation, 3 maybe 4 teams that are really just full sending at being successful and to hell with the money. And you got Optic, who they signed Pred, who was like the biggest free agent of the year, and he was like, he's been rumored he was going to Optic for like a solid an entire calendar year. They're also bringing back Shotzi and Dashy, who I think are both amazing talents. And then also Kenny from 100 Thieves, who I think their big issue last year with Optic was they didn't have someone to tell everyone to shut the fuck up and play some fundamentals. And from everything I've seen from anyone who played with Kenny in the LA Thieves organization, they all say he's that guy. He is the guy who will lock you down on fundamentals, and he will make them a better team. And I think they are gonna be really fucking scary.
Yeah,
because you got Pred, Shotzi, and Dashy who can fry anybody, any day, any map.
Yeah, watching COD League with you this year, because I mean you're the whole reason I started watching it, because you're just kind of hanging out. Watching Shotzi play is just like, I mean Pred too. Just looking at like where we're at, and then like
that gap is so big. Yeah,
like have you ever
just like it's insane. It's insane how people are like, bro, you're not even good, dude. How are you in the pro league? I'm like, dog, if you 1v1'd him, he'd win 1,000. He could DC and rejoin and still beat you. It could be 29-0. You're losing 30-29. Just get over it.
You're like, his ping's 320. Yours is 1.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Yeah. One of the other teams that I think made the only upgrade they could was FaZe. The Atlanta FaZe last year had Simp, Celium, Abizi, and Slasher. They released Slasher and brought in Draza from 100 Thieves. I think there's only like 2 or 3 AR players in the league who are better than Slasher. Draza's one of them. So they really couldn't. I think last year they were top 3 every single event. They just really had an issue in like winners finals and grand finals, just closing it out and getting it done. So I'm actually really curious to see what they do. Also, because like Draza's like the most hated person in COD. And And I'm just gonna quote all of Optic, because like for those who don't know, Optic fans are like 90% of the COD fans. Like you go to an event, the moment Optic's out of the tournament, the place empties ridiculously fast. It is actually hilarious.
Actually, yeah, because when they were doing it in at the LA Thieves home, we were watching the matches there, and the whole entire place was just filled with green.
Yeah. Oh like, yeah. It's insane.
It's insane. I mean, it's a very well-known org that's been around for decades at this point, but it's still it's still a wild thing to see.
Of like the 3 OG COD orgs, you know, you got FaZe, Optic, and Envy, and Envy merged with Optic, so there's not much else you can do there. You know, yeah, it would be absolutely fucking insane if Optic bought FaZe. That would just consolidate 99% of the COD fan base on one giant green wall.
Bless the green wall.
Literally, like it's already like the biggest dick ride. And like I'm not an Optic, I'm not a green wall guy, but like I also have nothing against Optic.
No, I
think they're a very well-run organization. I respect what they've done for the esport and gaming space. Just I don't know. I just don't like green.
I would put Optic as one of the most important things in helping drive gaming to where it is now.
Yeah, I think in like 20 years when we talk about like the Mount Rushmore of esports orgs, they're on there. They've got it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Optic for sure, just for everything they've done, and I'd still stack up FaZe and the LA Thieves, particularly because FaZe is another one. Obviously, we've talked about it. It's been around forever, and the Thieves particularly because when they broke onto the scene, it was a huge wave, and then it died, like my Edison bulbs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now the other, honestly, the funniest thing is like Draza was rumored to be joining Optic, and then when he joined FaZe, because last year, there were actual chants. Anytime Draza like lost, people would scream, "Fuck you, Draza."
That's really terrible.
That was very much a thing. There were literally "fuck you, Draza" chants at every event, like the entire year. And I forget why. I think it was like last year after they won champs, he was on Twitter chirping at Simp when they beat FaZe in the COD champs. I don't know. It was
gamers
just
being gamers.
It was gamer. Yeah, it was dude shit talking. Like they're gonna do it no matter what you say. So like, calm down.
Yeah.
The other big roster we're getting though, just so we can keep this rolling. There's one more roster, and then I want to talk about Boston.
Yeah.
So you got Scrap, Insight, and Kleenex returning to Toronto. They got rid of Hixie, brought in Envoy. A big upgrade. I mean, there's no hate towards Hixie. Dude did his thing all year. But Envoy's just, the dude's built different. You know, he's just built different. You know, he's just one of those dudes. He's just one of those guys who just, he's better. He's just like, he's one of the top 3 ARs in the league. Actually, I think he's a sub, actually. I'm
oh my God. That's funny. But like, yeah, but
it's wild. It's going to be a good year.
I'm excited for COD this year. I think I'd like to see more I think more teams need to consolidate. I think the brand of esports needs to get bigger before we have 20 to 30 teams running around the country.
Honestly, I disagree.
You disagree? Okay, because my take was NFL. Like it took a long time to build.
Oh, I think that's the stupidest model ever for esports. I think the franchising thing is stupid. I think it's really dumb. I think you should just do it the way they did it, like the CWL, and you have like 30 teams, giant tournaments every weekend. Like that will grow your esport. That is how you grow. Because there's so much
constantly running huge events.
Like in the amateur challenges league, there's so much good talent that just can't get through because there's so few spots.
That makes sense. Like, I mean, right now we are super limited, and I think that's actually a good point because when we're looking at like the scale of the NFL, there's not really that many seats to fill comparatively to people who want to go in. And I think you make a really good point. I think providing that opportunity will not only drive more potential new players, and continue to scale the way esports is building in this. I think there's also a lot of opportunity there for us to continue to see new players just constantly hitting the scene.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a ton of talent in challengers that just needs an opportunity to come out. But moving on from COD, the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight is I have recently gotten back into Destiny. And that game's fucking amazing. First off, everyone should play it, especially if your name's Nukie. Just saying, you know what I mean? There actually is a new Destiny season coming out next week as well that I'm very, very, very excited about. So with the new season, this is gonna be season 22. This is the, oh my god, excuse me. This is going to see the end of the Fallen storyline, which for like OG Destiny 1 fans back in like 2015, they were the first group of enemies you fought in the game. Before anyone else was added, before Vex, Cabal, Taken, all that fun shit was added, it was the Fallen. They were your OG enemies. They were the dudes you were fighting early on, and they're gonna apparently they're going away. So I'm not sure if this. I'm really curious to see how they do this, because obviously with the end of Lightfall, the Witness is just vibing out with the Traveler, and it's not a good thing. It's we're struggling right now.
I think, and I mean, I know you've played through Destiny 1 as well, but looking back at like my time, I mean, Destiny 1 was a super exciting moment in game history for me. That was actually my last release event I was able to attend in my area, because they stopped doing releases at midnight around here, which blows. But like looking back, that was such a unique time going into like, I think that was my first live service game, actually, like looking back.
It would have been mine. Yeah. I think they were pretty early on that train.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely games
outside that, like WoW, like for like console.
Yeah, like not including actual MMOs. Like this was a very aggressive jump from regular.
I mean, when we talk about Destiny 1, we're talking 2014.
God, man, like literally almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, and like that's actually kind of insane when you think about this game beat Fortnite by 3 years.
Yeah, and
that's insane.
That still speaks to that.
And like we talk about how long Fortnite's been around, and then you like even longer for Destiny. Like it's actually insane. So I think what they've been able to do, and like obviously there have been lulls. And I think now, especially like a lot of the PvP community is really not liking Destiny, but like I hate PvP anyway, so like I don't care.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, to be honest.
I've been loving. I think the big issue Destiny's always had is the ability to run activities without having a full group.
I also don't think the PvP itself is weighted very well. I don't think it ever has been.
Yeah,
and I don't think it ever will be.
Yeah, just like a 3v.
It's not built to be.
Yeah, the only like real Crucible I ever really liked, it was a 3v3, like no respawn mode. So it was kind of like search and destroy Valorant-y. Like you could also like res people too, so that was kind of fun. But that was my most. I enjoyed that the most because I think it had the most actual skill needed. Whereas like the other ones are kind of just like bring out a shotgun, die respawn the whole time. There's also, just to finish off Destiny really quick, we're also going to have, I was told not to tell anyone who this is. Major characters are going to die next season.
Yeah, I think us leaving it at that, because I don't want to necessarily spoil it for anyone in the audience. So what I will do is for the people who do want to hear it, I'm going to take my headphones off for a second.
I mean, I'm not going to say it.
You're not going to? Okay.
No, well, then I don't want to do that because I don't want someone getting mad.
I was going to say, if we give them a heads up, I don't mind.
Well, like, I don't need some weirdo in the comments being like, well, Zavala dies, ha ha ha. And like, that's not who dies. So you're good. I mean, I guess like RIP Lance Reddick. Like, I guess Zavala's already dead, but like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
But also the other main thing, the last thing I want to talk about Destiny, is we are getting a new sword exotic. that I'm
New sword exotic.
very interested in. Yeah, that's like the big new. Like every season they bring out like a new exotic. I believe this will be the battle pass exotic. Everyone's getting obsessed and all horny about. So
yeah.
that is our pod for tonight, Nukie. I'm glad you joined us. I want to thank our guests up here next to me, right here. They really helped us out today. I want to thank you for being here. Go ahead and where can people find you? Twitch.tv/it's Praww. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anyway, thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite part was and why I'm the best looking member of the Playground Pod.
You can dream. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see y'all next week.